Hi guys, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and today we are doing the tutorial of box number 23 of It's in the Box monthly craft subscription. Today's project is a Christmas and Halloween countdown, and let's see what's inside the box. All right, so as always, you'll have your instruction sheet with a list of supplies that you are going to need. And for this particular project, you're going to need baby wipes, 4 quarters, and a pair of scissors. Inside your box, you're always going to have your supply bag. And in your supply bag, you have your glue, your painting wedges, a bag of baby wipes, and a plastic applicator card. You're gonna have a bunch of numbers in black vinyl. I know vinyl is not something that we have done in this project or in this monthly subscription, but this month you are going to have some vinyl. Of course, you're going to have your wood kit and all your pieces, and we have it all shrink wrapped this time to keep it all together. But you're going to want to be careful that you do not lose any of the pieces, especially all of these little circles. You're going to need these circles, all right? They're not just there for looks. You're going to need them. And then you are going to have your paints. And for the demo box, these are the sizes that we have. And of course, at the end of the demo, if it was too much or too little, we'll make adjustments. But in the demo box, there's a pod of both red and green. And then we have smaller orange or small pods of orange and black and white and brown, okay? And then in the box, you also have this love it, snap it, tag it, share it, and leave a review card. And what we would love for you to do is, if you loved your craft from us today, maybe you could take a picture of it, post it on Facebook, tag us, and then share it with your friends. And of course, if you really, really love us and love this project, you could go to our Facebook page and leave a review for us. We would appreciate that very much. All right, and then of course you have your box, which is great for doing your painting right on. Just spread it all out like it's a table cover, and you can use that to paint on. All right, let's get started. Whoops, I kicked that camera there. Sorry about that. Let me readjust just a little. Got my paint lines. This shows me where my camera is at, so I know not to go outside of those lines, or else you won't see it in the camera if I go outside those lines. So I always mark those on my table just to give me some guidelines. It's really easy to lose sight of not being in the camera frame if I'm not paying attention. I project it up onto the big screen in the studio so I can look and see, but I don't always glance up. So, all right, once again, when you unwrap your kit, just be careful that you do not misplace any of these circles. Now, you won't use the teeny tiny circles. In the first draft or the first demo of this, we did use them, but then we decided that that might be too difficult for you guys, the way that we wanted this done, so we changed it. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do first. First, we're going to remove all of these pieces off of this pine backer board. So underneath all of this is a large pine backer board, and we want to move all these pieces off of there and make sure that we don't lose anything. And we have 2 flies in the studio that are determined to make me go apeshit. And I'm sure that they're going to just screw with me all day just to make me lose my mind. Okay, so let's move all of these pieces off. And Melissa's got them all nice and snugged in here, really, really neat, but they will fall apart when you move this board off. So I'm just gonna take the pieces out. All right, see, that's gonna come apart. And all these pieces are gonna fall out of there. Remember, don't lose these circles, you're gonna need them. It might just be easier to pop them out if they don't all come out of the guide, and just set them to the side. Now, don't discard this. It looks like trash, and it really is, but you're going to use this to line all your letters up in just a little while. So don't discard that quite yet. You still need it at this point. All right, so with the soft side of our yellow sponge, and this is the bigger yellow sponge in your packet, you have two. You have one large one and one small one. You want to use a large one for this. You're going to paint the backer board, this big pine board, with the white paint. And you're going to dip your sponge into that bucket of paint, and then you're going to wipe it onto your backer board. Now it does not matter what side of your backer board that you use, just pick one. Make sure you're getting a nice smooth coat. You don't want glops of paint. You don't want a thick coat of paint. Just do a thin coat. Do a thin coat, it will dry very quickly, and you'll be able to put your second coat on very quickly as well. You do not have to coat the back unless you want to. So if you want to paint the back, go ahead, but you do not have to. However, you do want to make sure that you get the sides. Easy on the sides to drip, so just be careful. If you do drip, that you pick it back up, just wipe it off with your sponge. Get rid of any drips that you might have made onto the face of the board and even the back of the board. You don't want your paint dripping on the back. All right. So there's our first coat of white paint on our backer board. And we're gonna let that dry all the way. Now you know it's dry when it's no longer shiny. So if your paint's still shiny, it's still wet, and you don't want to start a second coat while your paint's still wet, because all you're going to do is end up pulling the semi-dry paint, which is still semi-wet. If it's not all the way dry, it's still semi-wet. You're gonna pull that paint off, and what it's gonna do is make big clumps. And once that happens, you can't get rid of it. So let's not do that. Okay, so I'm just gonna set this to the side for a second. If you want to wait and not multitask, then you can wait for that to dry and put a second coat on it. But I like to keep moving. So I am going to move on to the next step here. So in your bag of supplies, you got a bag of baby wipes. There's about 3 baby wipes in each bag. You may not need all 3, but we wanted to make sure that you had 3 in case, because you are going to baby wipe stain, which is like a faux staining, 1 holiday or seasonal plate, which is this guy here, all of the number tags, which there are 6, front and back, and you're going to do this frame here. All right, so you're just gonna take your baby wipe, and I just like to fold it once, and then I fold it around a couple of fingers. And with the brown paint, you're gonna dip your baby wipe into the brown paint, and then you're going to wipe it onto the surface of each of whatever it is that you're painting, okay? Now you only need 1 coat. No need to go back over it a second time. But the trick is to not stay on the same part of the baby wipe until it gets fuzzy. So just coat your piece, then fold your baby wipe to get like a fresh section. Dip it into the brown paint, and then start again. Now you should be able to get a whole horizontal tag done with the same section of baby wipe, and probably 2 to 4 number tags. So you should have plenty of baby wipes. But hopefully, if you go through a lot of baby wipes, which some people do, and that's fine, hopefully you have baby wipes at home by this point. I don't know. I don't have little kids at home anymore, and I still have baby wipes. I still buy them every week. They're useful little creatures. Now, if you happen to do your kit late and your baby wipes dried up in your bag or something, all you have to do is add a little bit of water to the bag and re-moisten those baby wipes. Simple as that. I did get 4 tags done before I had to switch spots on my baby wipe, and all I did was just fold it over and get a new spot to add some paint onto. I am still on my original first baby wipe. I have not used more than one yet. Okay, that's the first side of each of those tags. Now while that first side dries, I'm going to do the frame. And still using the same baby wipe, but at this point, you know, if you need to, go ahead and switch wipes. Get yourself a new one. Do not have to do the inside or the outside edges of the frame, but because this is so narrow, you might drip some paint onto there, so just make sure if you do that, you pull that back up. Just get in there with a wipe and wipe it. You only need to do the front side of the frame because we will be gluing this down to our pine board. So we're not even going to see the back side. Okay, so there's the frame. Now we're just going to set the frame aside. And we're going to take each of these tags and we're going to flip them over. And I'm going to get a new baby wipe because I pretty much used that one up. And once again, I'm just going to fold it and I'm going to just wrap it around a couple of fingers, and I'm going to dip it into my paint. And I'm just going to repeat that process all over again. Now when I get these done this time, I'm going to move them up out of my way because I know my next step is going to be to put another coat on my backer board. So I just want to get those moved out the way so that they can dry and I have space to work. And there's all my number tags coated. I'm gonna bring my pine board back in front of me because I want one more coat on this. So I'm just going to repeat that process. We're using my yellow sponge and my white paint, and I am going to get the sides, remembering to pick up any drips that are on the back side. And then I'm going to put another coat on the front here. Now sometimes our wood has some, I don't know what else to call it besides like pock marks. And you can see in the lower corner here that I kind of have some pocky sections. And to fill those in with paint, I just take my sponge with the paint on it and I push down. So I'm pushing the paint into those holes. In order to get rid of those, we would have to send these boards through a planer. And yeah, we just don't do that. All right, that's the second coat, and that's all the coats I need on this particular piece of the project. So I'm going to take this board and I'm just going to set it aside until I'm ready for it at the end. And it will need that time to finish drying, especially if yours had any pock marks in it. If you have painter's tape, you can use this little trick to make painting your pieces a little bit easier. You can just take a section of painter's tape and you can fold the edges in, and you can stick it down to your table. And then you can take the pieces that you want to paint and you can press them down onto the painter's tape. And it will keep them still while you pounce your paint on. Now I'm going to paint the days until and the word Halloween and the bats all black. So because I'm painting them all black, I'm going to paint them all at the same time. Now I'm also going to take 4 of my medium size discarded little circle pieces. Okay, so I want you to look at this. Now you had this size here. This is the largest one you have. This is the one that popped out of this particular tag when it came off the laser, okay? We didn't discard that, we just kept them there. Now it also fit inside of these tags, the number tags as well. We don't need those pieces, so we're just gonna push those to the side. You have 3 sizes here, those are the largest ones. And then you have the smallest ones. We are not gonna use those either. And what we are going to use though are the 8 middle-sized or medium-sized pieces. All right, you only got 8 of them and we are going to use all 8 of them. So for this particular project, we're only going to paint 4 of them black. We need all 8, we are only painting 4 of them. And it will all make sense in a minute. So we're going to use our white wedge and our black paint, and we're gonna get the paint onto the white wedge, and then we're gonna come over, we're gonna pounce it off onto our table cover or pizza box because we don't need all that paint on the wedge. And then we're going to pounce the paint onto our wood pieces that we have here on our tape. Now if you don't have tape and you just have them on your table, that is fine as well. If you have a toothpick, you can take a toothpick to hold the piece down while you pounce it with paint so it doesn't bounce all over all over the table on you. There's a little trick. All right, now you're gonna wanna let those dry, and once they're dry, you're gonna wanna put a second coat on them. While we wait for the first coat of our black to dry, I'm gonna just take my yellow sponge that has my white paint in it and whatever paint is left in it. I'm not gonna put any more paint in it. And I'm gonna put a coat of paint on my second holiday or seasonal horizontal rectangle tag here. Now I'm doing this because we are going to paint this tag orange, and orange paint has a hard time covering. But if you put a base coat, a primer coat of white down, it covers a lot easier. So I'm just putting that quick coat of white on there, and I'm just going to set it to the side and let it dry for a second. All right, so now my days until Halloween and bats and my little dots are ready for a second coat of black paint. So I'm just gonna quickly apply a second coat of paint to these guys. All right, while those finish drying, I am going to do my word Christmas and my Christmas trees. Now I'm going to paint the word Christmas with the red paint from the pod, and I'm only going to use a half wedge. Initially we had a whole wedge in your kit, but I just realized that you're not going to need a whole wedge, and it will be harder to use a whole wedge because you can't dip a whole wedge into these little paint pods. So I am going to make sure that you guys have just 2 half wedges in your kit. All right, so you're going to use a half wedge for the word Christmas. And once again, same concept. You're just going to dip that wedge into the paint pod and scrape off on the side of the paint pod. And then you're just going to pounce up and down. Now you can stick the word Christmas down with blue tape as well if you would like. But it's a much bigger word, so it's just as easy to hold it as you pounce it. One word of advice, if you do stick it down with blue tape, it is a little more fragile. So when you pull it up off the blue tape, you're going to have to make sure that you are very gentle with it so you do not snap it in half. All right, now this will need 2 coats, so I'll just set it aside for a second. Let it dry while we do the trees. And the same thing with the trees. You're just gonna open your green pot of paint, dip your wedge into that little green pot of paint, scrape off on the side or pounce off on your table cover, and give it a coat of green. Now, if you don't like our paint color choices in your kits, because we're not using any stencils this month, you can use any kind of paint that you would like to use. You can use craft store paint, like acrylic paint that comes in those little 2-ounce bottles. You can use the acrylic paint that comes in the little tubes, or you can use house paint even if you wanted to. All right, we're gonna set that aside, let that dry. We're gonna bring our Christmas back down and we're gonna put a second coat on Christmas. Okay, we set our Christmas aside, let it dry. Our trees need just another second. Get our second coat on our Christmas trees. And then we're gonna set them to the side and let them dry. Now the next thing that we're going to do is take that last yellow sponge, this is the smaller yellow sponge, and our orange paint, and we're going to paint this last horizontal or holiday and seasonal tag. And I'm just putting the paint on my soft side of my yellow sponge, and I'm just gonna wipe it onto the backer board here of this tag. Now, orange is a finicky color like yellow and lime green and like any neon colors. It will take 2, probably 3 coats to cover. Okay, so just get that first coat on there and let that set for a second. And while that sits, I'm gonna clean up all the paint that I'm not using, which is my red and my green, my black and my brown. And while we wait a little bit longer here, I'm going to go ahead and take all of my black pieces off of my tape and just set them to the side. Now remember, you're going to use all 8 of those circles, even though you only painted 4. Careful when you pull your Halloween off your tape. While it's not as fragile as the Christmas is, it could still snap pretty easily on you. This is 4mm wood, commonly referred to as 1/4-inch birch. So it is not that thick. All right, we're gonna get that second coat of orange put on our seasonal tag. Now if you get paint down in these holes, just take your finger or a baby wiping and get that out of there, because you don't want a globby mess of paint in there. Alright, and I think 2 coats is going to be good for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and let that dry with the 2 coats on it. If you need a 3rd coat, by all means, wait until it's dry and go ahead and put your 3rd coat on it. Now we're gonna keep moving along here, even though I have some stuff that still needs to be finished yet. I want to keep moving so this video is not forever long. Okay, we're gonna take our backer board and put it back in front of us. And we're going to take our frame and we're gonna glue the frame to this backer board. Now your backer boards are cut, or I should say your frames are cut to fit the size of the backer board that we selected. You're gonna take your super glue and you're gonna run a bead of glue through the center of the part of the frame, the wood. You don't want it too close to the edges because it will just squish out and make a mess. And we don't need a ton of glue. Super glue is very strong. And then we're gonna flip our frame over onto our backer board and we're gonna line it up top to bottom, left to right, and then we're gonna put some pressure on it. Pressure for just a few seconds. Make sure your hands are clean before you put the pressure on it, because if not, your paint will transfer from your fingers to the frame and you don't want that. If it happens to happen though, just take a baby wipe and kind of wipe that paint off. You may have to retouch up the faux stain. And handy. We're gonna take our quarters and we're gonna lay them on our board in just a couple of spots, just like this. We want to try to not put them up here because that's where the letters Days Until goes. And that's what we're going to put next. All right, we're gonna take our template. Our template is this thing here that is really scrap, but it's gonna come in handy right now. We're gonna lay it on top of our quarters. Now, you can see my quarters are just showing through here. I want them underneath my template, but I don't want them to cover any of my letters. So I want you to visibly look down and make sure that you don't have any quarters underneath your letters there. And because I sit at the back of this and I can't put my head up here or else I get my head in the camera, I'm just gonna use a pair of scissors and make sure I'm clearing that. Okay, so this looks weird, but there's a reason that we're doing it this way. The quarters are raising your template up off your backer board just a little, so that when you put your letters in with glue on them, you do not accidentally glue the template to the backer board, because that would be awful. Now, another thing is this template is going to line everything up exactly where it needs to be. So the template plays a very important role here. All right, so we're just gonna take our super glue and we're gonna put glue in the middle of the wood pieces of our letters one at a time. Now remember, if you get too much glue in there, just dab it off onto your table cover or pizza box. And then we're gonna drop the letters one at a time into their position. And you can see that it drops down slightly. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do, because remember, the template is raised from the quarters. And so then we're just gonna take and we're gonna push the letter down, apply some pressure to it, and it's stuck down on the template, but your backer board is not. So you can lift your backer board right out of there, okay? So, but for now, we're gonna leave our backer board in, resting on top of our quarters. And now we're gonna repeat this with every letter of our days until, okay? So I'm gonna speed this up so you don't have to watch all of this. And we'll be back in just a second. Okay, all of my letters are down now, so I'm just gonna gently lift out my template. And then I'm just gonna apply a little bit of pressure to my letters again, just to make sure they're all stuck down in there. And then I'm gonna put my template right back down. Okay, now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our dots, our little circles, right? I'm gonna move this just to the side for a second. We still need it, but I wanna get these circles situated next. So we are going to glue one of each of the painted circles on top of one of each of the unpainted circles. We're just gonna put a dot of glue on the unpainted circle and stick the painted circle right over top of it, sandwiched together, and then we're gonna make sure that the sides are all squared up, because we want them stacked on top of each other, perfectly aligned, okay? All we're doing is building a peg. So we're gonna do that with each one. Stack them on top of each other, align them so they're lined up perfect, and then press them together. Remember, pressure activates super glue. There's all 4 of my pegs. Our backer board. And we're gonna put our template back in, because our template is going to be used to put these holes in. All right, so we're gonna set our quarters up just like this, and then we're gonna drop a seasonal plate in, and we're going to drop a number plate in each of the holes. Okay, now we're gonna take our pegs, and we're going to put our pegs in each of these holes. Now when we do this, we want our pegs pushed all the way up till it hits the top of the hole of each of the tags. And then we want to make sure that that peg is in the center of the hole vertically, okay? So horizontally, it's pushed all the way up to the top, but vertically, it's centered. All right, let me lift this up real close to the camera and show you. See, it's pushed all the way up to the top of the tag, but it's in the center vertically, right? So side to side, it's in the center. Now you're gonna take your super glue, and you're gonna put super glue on the back of one dot at a time. Remember, you don't want a ton because you don't want it to squish out even though your pegs are raised. If you get too much, just dab it off. You're gonna put your peg back down, and then you're gonna put pressure on it to set that peg. And you're going to repeat this for all 3 pegs. All 4 pegs, but the remaining 3. All right, so now you've set your pegs. Okay, at this point your template is now junk. So we're going to just remove our tags and our template, and it might take you a second to wiggle it out because it's going to be kind of tight. Pull your tags out and off, and you can get rid of your quarters now. And this is garbage, you can throw that away now. And so this is your backer board, and that's what it's going to look like when there's no tags on it. Right now we're going to finish our tags. First we're going to do the seasonal ones. I like to dry fit stuff because I need to make sure that it's all gonna fit before I glue it down. Now these Christmas trees, I told you we were gonna do a little something with them. I'm gonna take my yellow sponge that had my white paint on it, and it should still be wet enough. Mine is, yours probably is as well. And I'm just gonna gently brush some snowy edges onto my Christmas trees. So that's I just put some snow on my Christmas trees. You don't have to do that. Maybe you don't like snow. Maybe where you live you don't get snow. But here in Michigan, it pretty much seems like that's all we have during the Christmas season is snow. Some people love it. Other people tolerate it. If you're anything like me, you hate it. All right. So once again, we're just going to dry fit our pieces on here and make sure that everything fits before we glue anything down. And then you're going to take your super glue and repeating the process, glue in the middle. If you get too much, dab it off so it doesn't squish out. Apply pressure to set. Make sure your fingers are clean so you don't transfer any paint to your already dry pieces. Just like that. Oops, let me show you that real quick. We're going to set that to the side, and then we'll finish the Halloween one as well. Apply pressure. All right, so those pieces. Now we got to work on our tags. Okay. Now in your instructions, you might want to flip those over and see the tag setup, because it's very, very important that you follow the tag setup, or else you won't have enough countdown numbers. So you have 6 tags and they're going to be double-sided. Take your squeegee and squeegee down your numbers. That's that plastic card, is your squeegee. And then take your scissors and cut each of your numbers apart. You might have to do a little zigzag around them. We have them pretty tight on the vinyl sheet, so it fit in all one length on the plotter. Which we got a brand new plotter because our other one was several years old. Probably, I don't know, probably like 8 years old. And it decided it didn't want to work anymore. We'd been limping it along for quite some time, and it finally just had enough. So we got a brand new plotter, and it sings to Melissa. She's not sure she loves it. It's kind of loud, but it works great. Okay, so on the first side, we're gonna put 620 1 2 3. 620 1 2 3. Okay, 620 1 2 3. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the first number and you're going to peel it off of the grid line backing paper. So you have your grid line backing paper, you have the vinyl sandwiched in between, that's the black stuff, and then you have this clear application tape. Make sure your hands are clean. And you're just going to press that down onto the tag. Take your squeegee and squeegee it down. It's just like applying vinyl for a stencil. Okay, squeegee that down, and then you'll gently peel off that clear application tape, and then that tape is garbage. And you're going to repeat that for each of this first set of numbers, 620 1 2 3. Now leave these tags right in order like this. I'm just eyeballing these guys. I mean, if you want to, you can get out a ruler or piece of painter's tape to run along the edge. But I'm just gonna eyeball them. Okay, that's the first side. Now, we're gonna leave them right in the order they're in, and we're just gonna flip each tag over. Flip it right over in its spot. And then starting left to right, we're gonna go 4, 5, 1, 7, 8, and 9. And we're gonna do the same thing. Now that you have them, you can go ahead and move the pieces so you can work with them easier. I just don't want you to mess the number order up. Okay, there's all of our tags. Okay, so now to use this, now you can prop it up. You can, if you want to drill holes up in here to put a hanger on it, you can hang it, but it's pretty sturdy and it will just lean on a table against the wall, or you can use like an easel that you can find in like Michael's or Walmart or even Myers. Okay, to use the interchangeable Halloween or interchangeable season and holiday placards, you just set them right on top of those double stacked pegs. The same with the numbers. Now you have enough tiles that you can do a countdown for the month. So you would start at the beginning of the month. Days until Halloween, 18. Now, we have all kinds of these guys for you, and I'm gonna show you. And on your instructions, there's a little QR code in the bottom. If you scan that with your smartphone camera, it'll take you right to where you can order these little guys from. And let me show you what we have to offer you. And if there's something that you would like and we don't have, let us know and we'll make it for you. Okay, so we have the fall, New Year's Day, winter, Valentine's, summer, St. Patty's Day, Easter, Thanksgiving, Independence Day, and spring. So how cute is this little interchangeable countdown, right? If you have kids or grandkids, what a great little present for them. All right, you guys, so if you enjoyed this project, once again, if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to snap it, tag it, share it, and leave a review for us, we would appreciate it so much. All right, guys, take care.